Cancer cells are unlike normal healthy cells in many ways, but one of their most alarming characteristics is how heavily they depend on sugar as a source of energy. In scientific terms, this process is often referred to as the Warburg effect, named after Dr. Otto Warburg, who first discovered that cancer cells consume glucose at an astonishing rate compared to normal cells. They prefer to ferment sugar for energy even when oxygen is present, which is a highly inefficient way to generate fuel. But while this method of energy production may seem wasteful, it actually allows cancer cells to multiply rapidly and survive in harsh conditions. This reliance on sugar means that when our diet is filled with refined sugars, processed foods, and sweetened beverages, we are providing cancer cells with exactly the kind of fuel they need to thrive and spread inside the body. In the United States, sugar consumption is far higher than what the human body was ever designed to handle. From sodas and energy drinks to fast food, candy bars, and breakfast cereals loaded with hidden sugars, the average American consumes close to 17 teaspoons of added sugar per day. That's more than double the recommended limit suggested by health organizations. What this means in practical terms is that millions of people are unknowingly creating the perfect environment for cancer cells to grow. Sugar doesn't just raise blood glucose levels, it also spikes insulin, a hormone that plays a direct role in cell growth and metabolism. High insulin levels can signal cells to grow uncontrollably, and cancer cells exploit this pathway to accelerate their expansion. Processed foods, which make up a large part of the modern American diet, are another major culprit. These foods are engineered to be cheap, convenient, and highly palatable, but they often contain refined carbohydrates, hydrogenated oils, additives, and preservatives that disrupt the body's natural balance. When we eat something like white bread, pasta, pastries, or chips, the refined starches break down almost instantly into glucose, flooding the bloodstream in the same way a candy bar or sugary soda would. This rapid spike in glucose and insulin provides an immediate energy source for cancer cells, giving them the green light to keep dividing. Over time, this repeated cycle of sugar spikes and crashes not only exhausts the body's metabolism, but also creates chronic conditions that cancer loves, such as obesity, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. Another concerning fact is that sugar and processed foods don't just provide energy to cancer cells, they also contribute to a weakened immune system. When blood sugar is consistently elevated, the immune system's ability to detect and destroy abnormal cells becomes compromised. For example, studies have shown that white blood cells become less effective at engulfing harmful bacteria and abnormal cells in the presence of high glucose levels. This means that while you may not feel the immediate effects of consuming that soda or dessert, on a cellular level your body is losing its ability to fight off the very cancer cells that could one day take hold. In a country where cancer remains one of the leading causes of death, this connection between diet and disease cannot be ignored. It's also important to recognize how sugar interacts with inflammation in the body. Excessive sugar intake contributes to chronic inflammation by increasing the production of pro-inflammatory molecules. This inflammation acts like fertile soil for cancer cells, creating an environment where they can grow and invade nearby tissues. Imagine a wound that never heals. This is what chronic inflammation looks like inside the body, and sugar acts like gasoline on that fire. Meanwhile, processed foods often contain unhealthy fats, preservatives, and artificial flavors that further add to the inflammatory burden. The combination of sugar and processed food creates a vicious cycle. Inflammation feeds cancer, and cancer itself produces more inflammation, trapping the body in a downward spiral of disease. The food industry in the United States plays a major role in shaping this dangerous dietary pattern. Walk into any grocery store, and you'll notice that sugar is added to nearly every packaged product, even foods that are not typically thought of as sweet, like salad dressings, ketchup, or even bread. These hidden sugars contribute silently to the problem, and most people are unaware of how much they are consuming on a daily basis. Marketing campaigns also normalize the idea that sugary snacks and processed convenience foods are part of everyday life. Fast food chains offer oversized portions of soda and fries, schools sell candy and chips in vending machines, and advertisements constantly push products that are loaded with refined sugar. The result is a culture where sugar is everywhere and avoiding it requires conscious effort and awareness. The biology of cancer makes it clear that this abundance of sugar in the American diet is not harmless. PET scans, a common imaging tool used to detect cancer, actually work by tracking sugar. Before a scan, patients are injected with a small amount of radioactive glucose, and doctors watch where the sugar accumulates in the body. Cancer cells, because they consume sugar so aggressively, light up like hotspots on the scan. This medical reality is a stark demonstration of how tightly sugar is linked to cancer's behavior. If doctors are using sugar to find cancer in the body, it only reinforces the idea that sugar is the very fuel cancer depends on to survive. Another layer to this issue is how sugar impacts weight gain and obesity, which are major risk factors for cancer. Excess sugar in processed foods add empty calories that quickly lead to fat accumulation, especially around the abdomen. This type of fat, known as visceral fat, is metabolically active and produces hormones and inflammatory chemicals that further increase the risk of cancer. In the US, where obesity rates are among the highest in the world, this connection between diet weight and cancer risk is especially concerning. The modern lifestyle of sedentary behavior, combined with processed food, heavy diets is a recipe for metabolic dysfunction that cancer can easily exploit. While not every person who consumes sugar will develop cancer, the consistent overconsumption of it creates an internal environment where cancer cells can grow more easily. When combined with other risk factors such as stress, lack of exercise, and exposure to toxins, sugar acts as one of the central players in fueling disease. This is why many experts, including physicians like Dr. William Li, emphasize the need to be mindful about what we eat and to understand that food is not just a source of pleasure or convenience. It is also a determinant of health outcomes. The fight against cancer begins long before diagnosis, and the everyday choices we make at the dinner table have a direct influence on whether we are feeding cancer cells or starving them. Cancer does not grow in isolation. For a tumor to expand, it needs more than just sugar or fuel. It needs its own blood supply, and this process is called angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is the natural mechanism by which our body grows new blood vessels to repair injuries, heal wounds, and keep tissues nourished. Under normal circumstances, angiogenesis is a tightly controlled system that only activates when the body needs it. For example, if you cut your skin, blood vessels grow around the wound to provide oxygen and nutrients so the tissue can repair itself. Once healing is complete, the body turns off angiogenesis and returns to balance. But cancer cells are clever. They hijack this process for their own survival. Instead of waiting for the body to call for new blood vessels, cancer cells release chemical signals that trick the body into growing a private blood supply directly into the tumor. This allows cancer to grow beyond a tiny cluster of cells and turn into a life-threatening disease. When cancer establishes its own blood supply, it gains access to everything it needs to survive: oxygen, nutrients, and even pathways to spread throughout the body. Without angiogenesis, a tumor would not be able to grow beyond the size of a pinhead because it would starve from lack of nourishment. But once it connects to new blood vessels, cancer essentially plugs into the body's circulation system like a parasite. Blood vessels act as highways, giving cancer the ability not only to grow rapidly but also to spread cancer cells into other organs through a process called metastasis. This is why angiogenesis is considered one of the hallmarks of cancer biology and one of the most dangerous tricks cancer plays against the human body. The United States has been at the forefront of research into angiogenesis, and much of this work has been applied to developing anti-angiogenic drugs designed to block blood vessel growth in tumors. These therapies have saved lives, but there is a growing recognition that diet and lifestyle can play a similar role, often with fewer side effects. Certain natural compounds found in foods have been shown to inhibit the signals that cancer cells use to trigger angiogenesis. Instead of encouraging blood vessels to grow into a tumor, these foods block the process, cutting off cancer's lifeline. This is where the concept of aiding to starve cancer comes from, and it has transformed how people think about the power of nutrition. For example, tomatoes, especially when cooked, are rich in a compound called lycopene, which has been shown to slow angiogenesis. Green tea, consumed for centuries in Asia and increasingly popular in the US, contains catechins, bioactive molecules that directly block the growth of new blood vessels feeding cancer. Berries, such as blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries, are packed with antioxidants like ellagic acid and anthocyanins, which interfere with the ability of tumors to recruit a blood supply. Even spices common in American kitchens, like turmeric, contain curcumin, a powerful anti-angiogenic agent that research has shown can limit tumor growth in laboratory studies. The availability of these foods in the American diet is both a blessing and a challenge. On one hand, the U.S. has access to a wide variety of fruits, vegetables, teas, and spices from around the world that are rich in anti-angiogenic compounds. On the other hand, the standard American diet often prioritizes processed foods, red meats, sugary snacks, and fast food, which lack these protective nutrients and instead encourage inflammation and disease. This dietary imbalance means that while the tools to starve cancer exist right in front of us, many people simply aren't using them. It's also important to understand that angiogenesis does not only feed cancer, it is also involved in other diseases that are highly prevalent in the U.S., such as obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Excess fat tissue, for example, depends on new blood vessels to expand. When the body is carrying too much weight, angiogenesis fuels the growth of fat cells, which in turn produce hormones and inflammatory molecules that raise cancer risk. This means that controlling angiogenesis through food and lifestyle is not just about cancer prevention. It is also about reducing the burden of multiple chronic diseases that plague millions of Americans. Scientific evidence continues to grow in support of the idea that dietary choices can influence angiogenesis on a daily basis. For instance, studies have shown that people who consume diets high in plant-based foods rich in natural anti-angiogenic compounds have lower rates of certain cancers compared to populations that rely heavily on processed or animal-based diets. Populations in Mediterranean regions who eat diets rich in olive oil, tomatoes, greens, and seafood demonstrate significantly lower cancer rates, which experts believe is partly due to the anti-angiogenic properties of their foods. By contrast, the U.S. population, with its heavy reliance on fast food and processed snacks, shows higher rates of cancers associated with diet. The remarkable thing about angiogenesis is that it gives us a direct biological pathway through which our food choices influence cancer development. Unlike more abstract lifestyle factors, angiogenesis is tangible. You can literally see how tumors light up with new blood vessels in imaging studies, and researchers can measure how compounds in food disrupt those signals. Every cup of green tea, every handful of berries, every plate of leafy greens contributes to creating an environment inside the body where cancer struggles to survive. The science does not suggest that food alone cures cancer, but it does reveal that diet can either tip the balance in favor of disease or in favor of health. In the United States, where cancer is one of the top killers and healthcare costs are among the highest in the world, the idea that everyday foods can suppress angiogenesis represents a powerful and affordable tool for prevention. Instead of relying solely on expensive medical treatments after cancer has developed, people can take daily action to reduce their risk long before a diagnosis ever happens. The ability to block cancer's blood supply is not locked away in a hospital or laboratory. It is sitting on grocery store shelves and farmers markets, waiting to be used. This knowledge shifts the conversation about cancer from one of fear and helplessness to one of empowerment and control. Inflammation is a natural process that the body uses to protect and heal itself, but when it becomes chronic, it creates the ideal environment for diseases like cancer to take hold and spread. Normally, inflammation is part of the body's defense system. If you cut your finger, the area becomes red, warm, and swollen because immune cells rush in to repair the injury and protect against infection. Once the wound heals, the inflammation subsides and balance is restored. But in modern society, particularly in the United States, where diets are heavily loaded with processed foods, fried meals, and artificial additives, many people live in a state of constant low-grade inflammation. Instead of being an occasional protective response, inflammation becomes a permanent condition simmering inside the body, damaging tissues and organs. Cancer cells are opportunists, and they thrive in this inflamed environment because it provides them with the perfect soil in which to grow and expand. The connection between inflammation and cancer has been documented extensively in scientific research. Chronic inflammation can damage DNA, disrupt normal cell signaling, and weaken the immune system's ability to detect and eliminate abnormal cells. Over time, this creates an internal environment where cancer cells not only form more easily, but also spread more aggressively. In the United States, where diets high in processed meats, sugary foods, fried fast food, and alcohol are common, this pattern of chronic inflammation is fueling higher cancer rates and other chronic diseases. The very foods that dominate the American diet are the same ones that scientists now recognize as contributors to systemic inflammation, which in turn lays the foundation for cancer development. Processed meats such as hot dogs, bacon, pepperoni, and deli slices are a prime example of foods that fuel inflammation. These products often contain nitrates, preservatives, and high amounts of saturated fats that trigger the release of pro-inflammatory molecules in the body. Studies have shown that regular consumption of processed meats increases the risk of colorectal cancer, one of the most prevalent cancers in the U.S. Similarly, fried foods like French fries, fried chicken, and onion rings are loaded with trans fats and advanced glycation end products, compounds that promote oxidative stress and inflammation in tissues. Alcohol, consumed in high amounts, is another major source of inflammation. While moderate intake is sometimes considered acceptable, heavy drinking damages the liver, disrupts the gut microbiome, and drives chronic inflammatory pathways that increase the risk of liver cancer, breast cancer, and other malignancies. The standard American diet, often referred to as SED, does more than provide calories. It creates the perfect storm for inflammation. Highly processed snacks and sugary beverages spike blood sugar and insulin levels, which trigger the release of inflammatory chemicals. At the same time, these foods lack the antioxidants, fiber, and phytonutrients that the body needs to fight oxidative damage and restore balance. Over time, the combination of constant exposure to pro-inflammatory foods and lack of protective nutrients leaves the body defenseless against cellular mutations that lead to cancer. What makes this especially concerning is that many people in the US consume these foods daily without realizing how much harm they are causing inside their bodies. Inflammation also weakens the body's natural barriers against cancer. The immune system is designed to patrol and destroy abnormal cells before they turn into tumors. But when inflammation is ongoing, the immune system becomes overstimulated and eventually exhausted. It loses its ability to distinguish between healthy cells and harmful ones, and in this state of confusion, cancer cells can slip by unnoticed. Chronic inflammation also creates growth factors and cytokines that act like fertilizer for cancer, helping tumors establish blood vessels, invade tissues, and spread to distant parts of the body. Essentially, the body's own defense mechanisms are hijacked and turned into tools for cancer growth. At the same time, lifestyle factors in the United States make the problem worse. Sedentary behavior, obesity, and stress all contribute to systemic inflammation. Excess body fat, particularly visceral fat around the abdomen, is metabolically active and releases inflammatory molecules into the bloodstream. This is one reason why obesity is strongly linked to several types of cancer, including breast, colon, and pancreatic cancers. Stress, which is widespread in American society due to work pressure, financial struggles, and fast-paced lifestyles, further fuels the release of inflammatory hormones like cortisol. Combined with unhealthy diets, these factors create a constant inflammatory burden that sets the stage for disease. But just as certain foods and habits promote inflammation, others have the ability to calm it and restore balance. Diets rich in anti-inflammatory foods have been shown to reduce cancer risk by creating an environment inside the body that is hostile to cancer cells. For example, turmeric, a spice used in many cultures and increasingly popular in the US, contains curcumin, a compound with strong anti-inflammatory properties. Olive oil, a staple of the Mediterranean diet, is another powerful anti-inflammatory food that helps protect against cancer. Leafy green vegetables, berries, nuts, and omega-3 rich fish such as salmon and sardines provide antioxidants and healthy fats that reduce inflammation and strengthen the immune system. Populations that consume these foods regularly, such as those in Mediterranean regions, tend to have lower rates of cancer compared to populations in the US that rely heavily on processed and fried foods. Scientific evidence shows that adopting an anti-inflammatory diet not only reduces cancer risk but also improves overall health outcomes. People who eat diets high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats have lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood. This means that every meal can either add to the body's inflammatory burden or help relieve it. The choice between eating processed meats and fast food versus a plate of vegetables and fish is not just about calories or weight. It's about whether you are creating an environment where cancer can thrive or one where it struggles to survive. Inflammation also interacts with angiogenesis, the process of growing new blood vessels. Chronic inflammation stimulates angiogenesis, giving tumors the blood supply they need to grow. This creates a dangerous cycle. Inflammation promotes angiogenesis feeds cancer, and cancer itself creates more inflammation. Breaking this cycle requires conscious dietary and lifestyle choices that focus on reducing inflammation at its source. In the US, where inflammatory foods dominate the marketplace, this requires education, awareness, and a shift in how people view the connection between diet and disease. The message is clear from decades of research. Chronic inflammation is not a minor issue, but a major driver of cancer and other chronic diseases. The foods most commonly consumed in the American diet, processed meats, fried foods, sugar, and alcohol, are the very triggers that keep the body locked in an inflammatory state. Without intervention, this cycle continues unchecked, fueling cancer risk across generations. The immune system is the body's most powerful natural defense against cancer, and when it is functioning at its best, it has the remarkable ability to detect and destroy cancer cells before they can take hold. Every single day, our bodies produce abnormal cells, including potential cancer cells, as a result of DNA damage, environmental exposure, or errors during cell division. Under normal circumstances, the immune system identifies these dangerous cells, marks them as threats, and eliminates them through specialized mechanisms involving natural killer cells, T cells, and other immune defenses. However, when the immune system is weakened or overwhelmed, Cancer cells can escape detection, grow unchecked, and eventually form tumors. This is why empowering and strengthening the immune system is one of the most crucial steps in preventing and fighting cancer, and diet plays a central role in determining how well this system performs. The immune system is highly sensitive to the foods we eat. In the United States, where the typical diet is dominated by processed foods, refined sugars, and unhealthy fats, many people are unknowingly suppressing their own immune function. Highly processed foods often lack the vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that immune cells require to operate efficiently. Instead, they overload the body with chemicals, preservatives, and empty calories that contribute to inflammation and metabolic stress. Over time, this constant exposure erodes the immune system's effectiveness, leaving the body vulnerable not only to infections but also to cancer. By contrast, diets rich in whole, nutrient-dense foods give the immune system the raw materials it needs to remain strong and vigilant against abnormal cell growth. Nutrients such as vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and selenium are all critical for immune health. Vitamin C, found in citrus fruits, bell peppers, and strawberries, supports the function of white blood cells and helps the body fight oxidative stress, which is known to damage DNA and encourage cancer development. Vitamin D, obtained from sunlight exposure in foods like fatty fish and fortified dairy products, plays a direct role in immune regulation, ensuring that immune cells are active and responsive. In the US, vitamin D deficiency is widespread, partly because of sedentary indoor lifestyles and poor diets, and this deficiency has been linked to weakened immunity and increased cancer risk. Zinc, found in nuts, seeds, beans, and seafood, is vital for the development and activation of immune cells, while selenium, found in Brazil nuts and whole grains, acts as a powerful antioxidant that protects cells from damage. When these nutrients are abundant in the diet, the immune system is better equipped to neutralize cancer cells before they become a threat. Beyond individual vitamins and minerals, the immune system is profoundly influenced by dietary patterns as a whole. Plant-based foods, especially fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, are loaded with phytochemicals, natural compounds that provide color, flavor, and disease-fighting properties. These compounds boost the activity of immune cells, reduce inflammation, and improve the body's ability to resist cancer growth. Foods like broccoli, kale, and Brussels sprouts contain sulforaphane, a compound that activates protective enzymes and enhances immune surveillance against cancer cells. Garlic and onions contain allicin and other sulfur compounds that have been shown to stimulate immune activity and slow cancer progression. Even mushrooms, which are increasingly studied in the US for their medicinal properties, contain beta-glucans that directly enhance immune responses. Obesity, which affects a large percentage of Americans, is another critical factor that suppresses immune function. Excess fat tissue, especially visceral fat around the organs, is not passive. It actively secretes hormones and inflammatory molecules that interfere with immune regulation. This means that obesity not only increases the risk of developing cancer, but also weakens the body's natural ability to fight it. Achieving and maintaining a healthy weight through balanced eating and regular physical activity is one of the most effective ways to restore immune balance. Exercise itself has been shown to improve immune surveillance, increasing the circulation of natural killer cells and T cells that patrol the body for cancerous activity. In the US, where sedentary lifestyles are common due to desk jobs, screen time, and limited physical activity, this lack of movement compounds the problem of weakened immunity. Another often overlooked factor is the gut microbiome, the community of trillions of bacteria living in the digestive tract. The gut is closely linked to the immune system, with nearly 70% of immune cells residing in the gut lining. A healthy, diverse microbiome supports strong immunity, while an unhealthy microbiome, often caused by diets high in processed foods and low in fiber, contributes to immune dysfunction. Foods rich in fiber, such as beans, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, nourish beneficial gut bacteria, which in turn produce compounds like short-chain fatty acids that regulate immune responses and reduce cancer risk. Fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi also provide probiotics that improve gut health and immunity. In the US, where diets are fiber, poor, and heavily processed, many people are missing out on this essential support system for immune function. Stress, sleep, and lifestyle choices also influence the immune system's ability to resist cancer. Chronic stress, common in American society due to financial pressures, work demands, and fast-paced living, elevates stress hormones like cortisol that suppress immune activity. Poor sleep, another widespread issue in the US, reduces the production of immune-supporting molecules and weakens the body's defenses. Smoking and excessive alcohol consumption further compromise immunity, increasing vulnerability to cancer. Addressing these lifestyle factors is just as important as dietary choices when it comes to keeping the immune system strong. The science is clear that the immune system is not a passive observer, but an active protector against cancer. By strengthening it through proper nutrition, maintaining a healthy weight, supporting the gut microbiome, reducing stress, exercising regularly, and avoiding harmful substances, individuals can significantly enhance their ability to resist cancer. In a nation like the United States, where cancer remains one of the leading causes of death, taking steps to empower the immune system offers a pathway to prevention and resilience that is both practical and powerful. Every day, our choices matter more than we realize. Cancer does not appear overnight. It is shaped by the environment inside our bodies, an environment we create through the foods we eat, the lifestyles we choose, and the habits we maintain. Sugar and processed foods can feed cancer. Unchecked angiogenesis can supply tumors with blood. Chronic inflammation can prepare the soil for disease. And a weakened immune system can fail to stop what should have been eliminated from the start. But here's the truth, just as our daily choices can fuel cancer, they can also starve it. Every cup of green tea, every plate of vegetables, every step toward a healthier lifestyle is an act of defense. You hold far more power than you may believe. Cancer may be one of the greatest challenges of our time, but the battle does not begin in the hospital. It begins at your dinner table, in your kitchen, in your everyday decisions. The choice is always yours to feed cancer or to fight it. And when you choose to fight, you are giving your body the chance to protect you, heal you, and carry you into a healthier future.